Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Lorethrough, episode 129. We're gonna go see what Gideon's up to, right? Exciting. Don't mind what I'm doing here. This is simply precautionary.
I knew you'd come to stand before the Elden Ring, to become Elden Lord. What a sad state of affairs. I commend your spirit, but alas, none shall take the throne. Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we continue to struggle. Unto eternity.
Come on, Gideon. Yeah. Ooh, this killed us. Oh, little extra ticks could have done us in as well. Come on, Gideon. Ooh. Whew. Alright, you're allowed to do that, I suppose. Just trying to get him with a storm stomp because I thought it'd be funny.
I know in my bones a tarnished cannot become a lord. Not even you. A man cannot kill a god.
Yeah, but are we really a mere man anymore? I mean, we have absorbed countless runes to grow in strength. We've unlocked destined death, and we have time warping weapons. At least the ones that have had their final upgrade are time warping. Supposedly, that warping of time allows one to be able to kill a god. Okay. I think we're missing something there. But we got his weapon. Let's take a look at that. Scepter of the All-Knowing. So it is an int dex weapon. I think it leans toward intelligence, though. Scepter in the form of a hand grasping a pearl, signature weapon of Sir Gideon Ofnir the All-Knowing. He only used it once at the beginning of the fight, then he was kind of using incantations and spells the whole time. The pearl stands for the world, the heavens, and the eye, representing the many forms of knowledge never fully attainable. Even knowing that, the All-Knowing's hand grasps for it. And I want to look at his armor. Helm set with countless eyes and ears, worn by Gideon Ofnir the All-Knowing. Knowledge begins with the recognition of one's ignorance, the realization that the search for knowledge is unending. But when Gideon glimpsed into the will of Queen Marika, he shuddered in fear. At the end, that should not be. And I think his set says more or less the same thing. You can remove his bathrobe from his armor if you so choose. Okay. Starting to think we forgot something. I'm missing a spell or two. Maybe we'll find it in the next room. Huh. Might need to look it up. Because there's various protection spells you can get. And one of them does like all of the elements, and I might have missed it. Maybe I needed to talk to Gideon or something, because I feel like he gives you a couple of them. I will check. Here we find ourselves at the Erdtree Sanctuary again. We can see a boss fog up there, so no hiding stuff from us. Black Knife Assassin we killed did not come back. There's another item on Marika's bed, though. I don't think that is the item I was referring to. I think it's a different incantation. Let's take a look. There it is. Okay, so let's take a look at these incantations that we found so far. Alright, Erdtree Heal. One of the ancient Erdtree incantations. Heals a vast amount of HP for the caster and nearby allies. Hold to continue praying and delay activation. The Erdtree once flourished with abundance, yet it was only for a fleeting moment. Such is the course of all life. Okay. Let me look up that incantation. I feel like we're missing 2 of them. Which makes me feel bad. Should have done this beforehand, but I didn't realize it till now. Okay, incantations. Here we go. And we wish to sort by type. That'll help us a great deal. Okay, so in looking at all of our silly incantations, we have Golden Lightning Fortification and Barrier of Gold. And of course, down in a different bracket is the fire version, Flame Protect Me. Yeah, Flame Protect Me. So we have Lightning, Magic, and Fire Negation, right? There's supposed to be a Holy and then an all-rounder one, right? And that is what I'm trying to... Lightning Fortification, Barrier of Gold... Maybe. Maybe there isn't one for Faith and I'm just misguided. I know there's one... I know there's one for physical as well. Should not be doing this on the clock, but here we are. Maybe there isn't one for holy. There's a small little one, but... so we missed Black Flame Protection because we didn't talk to Gideon Ofnir about the secret medallions after we had used them, apparently. Oops. And Protection of the Erdtree, which gives an affinity negation for a little bit of everything. Oh, okay. That one's slightly east of Goldmask's location. So we have this Queen's Bedchamber, so apparently if we are... out here. I think this one's coming back to me. So if you were curious, Black Flame Protection, I don't know when I'll show it off. It is an incantation that reduces the amount of healing you get from Crimson Flasks, but in return, you get like 60% damage negation from physical. That was it originally. They nerfed it recently by 2%. I think they meant to nerf it by 20%, at least in PvP. Alright, here's the beetle that I was missing. Protection of the Erdtree, ta-da! That is a good incantation. I like that one. Okay. So let's make our way back to the Queen's Bedchamber, and let's prepare for some big fights. Okay, we're all set to go. We've done our prep work. Now let's get up to that fog wall and see what's going on. See how far we can get. Ooh, giving me chills we've gotten so far. Goodness, I don't know why, but part of me always wondered if I'd get this far in the playthrough. Anyway, there is a sign here on the ground, and it is none other than Nefeli Lu, warrior. She did promise to help us in the end, and, well, here she is at the end. And another item I never got a chance to look at, that I will now look at. Actually, more than one item, now that I think about it. So first off, sorry Nefeli, you're going to have to wait a second. But you can get the Puppet of Nefeli Lu if you decide to give her the draft instead of the Dung Eater, right? One of Seluvis' favorite puppets used to summon the spirit of Nefeli Lu. Puppet of a warrior who is betrayed by her pure heart in the alternate timeline. Wields a Stormhawk axe in both hands and uses the Thunderstorm skill, a diamond in the rough deserving of special care lest its potential be squandered. Nefeli Lu truly was a warrior. Good thing that's not canon. And now we need to look at our incantations. Okay. Incantation of Erdtree Worship, Protection of the Erdtree, increases damage negation for all affinities except physical, for both caster and nearby allies. Hold to continue praying and delay activation. In the beginning, everything was in opposition to the Erdtree, but through countless victories in war, it became the embodiment of order. And Black Flame's Protection. Black Flame Incantation of the Godskin Apostles. Summons a black fire within, increasing physical damage negation. However, Sacred Flasks and other such forms of HP restoration are impaired. The Apostles were all embraced by the Glowmide Queen, and the Black Flame was their armor within. So I guess that explains why they're so tough, despite wearing not metal, or armor, really. Wearing skin. Yuck. I should have tossed some of these away. Okay, I think we're good to get into the fight now. We're going to use this thing for a little bit, because I like it, and I feel like it's fitting, right? The Black Blade, though it is only a fraction of what it once was. It's missing a huge chunk of its handguard, honestly. Feels bad. Oh well. Let's get in there and see what is up. We're going to try to be ready to swap our kit on the go. And it's quite the mane of hair.
It's been a long while, Morgoth.
Lord Godfrey knows Morgoth. Well, Morgoth's one of the golden lineage, right? We learned that much. Is this a father and son moment we've just trumped into? Oh look, Grace is leading him to us.
Long and hard didst thou fight. Tarnished warrior, spurned by the grace of gold. Be assured the Elden Ring resteth close at hand. Alas, I am returned.
He's a little late to the party, though.
To be granted audience once more.
Finally face to face with a real Elden Lord.
Upon my name as Godfrey, the first Elden Lord.
Placidus Sax is actually the first. Get him, Nefelis! So he's got much the same move pattern as the Golden Shade of Godfrey. But he's got that big old thing on his back. Uh-oh, what a mistake, what a mistake. But of course he's the real Godfrey. Why wouldn't he have a phase 2? And look at this. Sarosh is taking corporeal form.
That will be all. Thou didst me good service, Sarosh.
I've given thee courtesy enough.
Makes the controller rumble.
Now I fight as Horaloo. Warrior!
And chieftain of the Badlands. We do know that much. Oh no! Oh, I hope this doesn't kill me. Black Flame Protection probably saved my life. Pop on another Black Flame Protection because damage negation is crazy high. No! That's our summon! He's just so intense. Ooh.
Brave, tarnished. Thy strength befits sacred.
It's not really fair. We had two Nepheli Lu warriors, and he was only one Lu warrior. Remembrance of Horaloo. There we go. And another side of grace. God, I wish we could talk to Nepheli about the fight to see what her thoughts are. So it seems we were right that there was a link between Horaloo as well as between Lord Godfrey. It seems that Horaloo... Well, let's read the Remembrance. I might cast some light on this, actually, before I just go nuts into speculation. Remembrance of the warrior Horaloo, hewn into the Erd Tree. The power of its namesake can be unlocked by the finger reader, blah, blah, blah. When Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, was robbed of grace, becoming tarnished, he took with him his kinsfolk and left the lands between. After the long march of the tarnished came to an end, Godfrey divested himself of kingship, becoming a simple warrior once more. Interesting. Well, let's head to the round table, hold, and take a look at the items that we get from Lord Godfrey. Alright, let's see. Ash of War. Horaloo's Earthshaker. Slam both hands into the ground to violently shake the earth and unleash a shockwave. Follow up with additional slam input to, well, slam the ground again. I said that funky because I read badly. But yeah, so when he used both of his hands and slammed the ground and then did it again, it's this move. You can put this on hardly or basically any strength weapon. It does really well on strength weapons. And you can jump the impact. That's kind of its glaring weakness. But if you catch people off guard, the first will often panic roll into the second. Given they panic roll or whatever, not if they jump. If they panic jump, which isn't really panicking, they will negate the damage and can counter hit you. But Axe of Godfrey. Weapon of Godfrey, Elden Lord. It was broken in a battle fought as leader of the Tarnished during the Long March. This weapon is symbolic of Godfrey's vow to conduct himself as a lord, later becoming an emblem of the golden lineage. In the days of the past, a crown was warranted with strength. And sure enough, Godfrey tells us much the same, that our strength befits a crown. And the Ash of War is similar to the... the unique skill in the Axe of Godfrey is similar to the Ash of War we can get from him, but it's a stomp that does a shockwave and then a follow-up strike. And it's a war cry, if I recall, which changes your further heavy attacks, so kind of neat. We'll grab that for now. And we can receive his equipment. So we can buy the Elden Lord crown, armor, bracers, and shorts. Take a look at all those. Crown of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. In the age of the Erd Tree began amongst conflict, when Godfrey was lord of the battlefield. He led the war against the giants, faced the Storm Lord alone. We don't know if the Storm Lord was Placidusax. I doubt it, but it could have been, right? Or the Warhawk king that we gave his ashes to Nepheli Lu. And then there came a moment when his last worthy enemy fell, and it was then, as the story is told, that the hue of Lord Godfrey's eyes faded. Says much the same. Says much the same. Says much the same. Okay. And I don't think we can go talk to Nefeli Lu about all this, unfortunately. It would be nice to. We're gonna go check, though. Why not? Yeah. I don't think so, but it would be really neat if she had something to say about the fight. But Lu must be just a title of chieftains, but she could be because she's the now monarch of Stormveil Castle. Maybe she is an offshoot of Horalu's line and lineage, not necessarily Lord Godfrey. I don't think she has anything to say.
Farewell. I will remain to summon the storm, but your guidance and your fight surely lie elsewhere. I will remain your guide surely lie.
For the time being, at which time by raising, I hope it.
Okay, that's all they have to say. I thought so, but I thought I would check. You never know when you can be surprised. Okay. Alright, we have a smidgen of time left. I suppose we can continue to challenge some foes. I don't know what all will bring. We'll try this out. Why not? We don't need the Nefeli Lu puppet anymore. But I digress. Okay, and there's nothing here for us. I should have pointed out, the briars are melted away. Not completely, but enough we can get past. And a unique fog wall, the likes of which we have never, ever seen before. So, very unique. Certainly. Well, this is kind of momentous. Let's get to it and see how well it goes. And we'll pop one of these just in case. But we probably won't need it that much. Reminds us of the beginning of the game when we were on a big old stone platform looking at a door of light. Were we here? In some capacity? There's Queen Marika. And for some reason her womb is pierced by a spear. Lots of symbology there. Very symbolic. Definite allusions to Christ. But it breaks and she falls. For some reason when we enter. There's big missing parts. There's not a whole lot left of this character. But then, the hair turns from blonde to red. And that's not Marika at the moment. It was a moment ago. That's King Consort Radigan, isn't it? Has to be. Second Elden Lord. And he is not in great shape. But there's the Elden Ring within him. Ooh. No, don't use sleep pots, my poor minion. Whew. Huh. Sorry, Radigan of the Golden Order. I actually set up the stupid delayed spells to coordinate with when I'd given myself the damage buff from the multi-hit. I've been trying to do that. But, there's no way Radigan would be so simple. No way, no how. What is this thing? This monstrosity. It took Radigan, plunged him into the ground, and withdrew him as a finger slayer blade. Like the one Ronnie needed to slay the vassal of the two fingers. Something is very off here. Is this the embodiment of the Elden Ring? Is this the greater will? The fact that Radigan became its weapon is kind of twisted. Look at that. Ooh, too much fire. I didn't know that was critable. Big old rings from the sky. Kind of worrying. Ooh. Oh no. Our poor boy. It's so far away. Why is he so far away? Oh. That's an attack if ever I saw one. Kind of fights like a dragon. Not gonna lie. Is this the Elden Beast? Oh no! God, it's just impossible to get close to. Oh, this seems bad. I think we can crit this to avoid the Elden Star's attack. Haha! He's just so far away all the time. The Mimic Tier's doing a great job. I knew at the very end there'd be nobody I could trust but myself. Come here, you silly beastie. We just needed a drill that could pierce the heavens. There we go. Thank you, best friend. I really appreciate it. Elden Remembrance. Oh boy. Okay. Alright. We're gonna have this side of grace. We're gonna go explore those items we've got, and it's going to be next time that we will explore the endings. So don't you fret. Yeah, let's hop to the round table hold and take a look at the item we just got. Got a remembrance of a lord after all. We should read it before we cast it away uselessly. Remembrance of the Elden Beast, hewn into the Erd Tree. Somehow. The power of its namesake can be unlocked by a finger reader. It was the vassal beast of the greater will, and living incarnation of the concept of order. So was it the Elden Ring, or was the Elden Ring still embedded in Radigan / America? It's got a little bit going on, but it does seem very erratic. Kind of like that primordial Erd Ring, or yeah, the primordial Elden Ring that we saw in Malekith's boss room. Very fascinating. This must have been the beast that traveled on the Elden Stars. Sort by type, so I can find it easier. Where is the darn thing? I must be missing it just barely. I know I have it. I've read its description before. There it is. Okay. This legendary incantation is the most ancient of those that derive from the Erd Tree. Creates a stream of golden shooting stars that assail the area. It is said long ago the Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between. We now know that as the Elden Beast, which would later become the Elden Ring. So yeah, the Elden Beast must have been the Elden Ring, and it seems that we did something to make it come back out, because it wanted to kill us. Maybe it wanted to take our power for itself in the end. Let's... Fortunately, Radigan doesn't have an outfit for us to steal. I wish he did. I guess it would just be a skirt, because he was shirtless, but oh well. Alright, so we can get Marika's hammer, or the Sacred Relic Sword. Stone hammer made in the lands of the Newman, outside of the lands between. The tool with which Marika shattered the Elden Ring, and Radigan attempted to repair it, so they were in opposition. Turns out. The hammer partially broke upon shattering the Elden Ring, becoming splintered with rune fragments, and we can see that right there. So its unique skills, that Goldbreaker, the one where Radigan rose up in the air, flew forward a little bit, and slammed the ground with a big AoE. We can get that, and it is a faith strength weapon, if I recall. I forget which it leans toward, but I think it leans towards strength, which is kind of neat. Kind of late in the game to get it, though. Or the Sacred Relic Sword, which is a dex faith weapon. I think it leans towards dex, but it has a faith requirement. Though the more you imbue it with faith, the better it will do with its Ash of War. Sword wrought from the remains of a god who should have lived a life eternal. Thoughts on what the weapon portends are many and varied. Some consider it the mark of a great sin or a sign of great devastation. Some think of it as the end of an age, while others the beginning. Unique skill, Wave of Gold. Imbue the sword with bygone golden glory and fire it at foes. A wide golden wave fans out forwards, sweeping through all enemies caught in its path. Sure enough. Okay. Let's go show those off really fast. I feel like we should do those justice.
I see. Yep.
Okay, she has nothing to say.
Now.
And Hewig has no clue that we've slain a god, unfortunately. Alright, let's go test out these weapons like I said we would. Fractured Marika is the site of grace here. Perfect, okay. So here's Goldbreaker. Big ol' slam. Very exciting. And then we need to switch to the Golden Order, or the Sacred Relic Sword. People use this will farm the red Albinaurics and the regular colored Albinaurics in the Mogwin Palace. just because you send it down the hill and it'll kill just about everything if you have the appropriate stats. And it was a money farming method for a long, long time. It's probably still the fastest, quote-unquote, legitimate method of farming money, but there's methods where you can fall off of cliffs in particular places to kill the whole map and not kill yourself and keep the money, and those are yada yada. There's YouTube videos on it if you're interested, but yeah, this thing's kind of gross, isn't it? Looks like it's got some feet at the end there. We got the spine and arms for the handguard, and I twisted the neck and head into this spiral shape. Ugh. I took the time to upgrade them, so we can see, sure enough, that, yeah, America's Hammer is a strength weapon with a faith requirement, and the Sacred Relic Sword is a dex weapon with a faith requirement. So, faith gets to have more fun in this game, it seems, but there's nothing wrong with that. They've had it bad for so many games in a row. But, thank you for joining me today. Oh my goodness. Part, 129, I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. And next time, part 130, we will explore all of the endings. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good one, and bye-bye. Hello, hello. Here we are on the Lunar Plateau, and we're just going to do a quick lore recap. Going to talk about some items, some characterization, and some theories pertaining to the end of the game. Information we didn't have. And first off, I would like to start off with the Axe of Godfrey, right? We get this axe from his boss soul, and when we fight the Golden Shade of Godfrey, the axe is whole. When we find Godfrey himself, right before the Erd Tree, he is wielding this thing broken on his long march. Interestingly enough, it has very decorative patterns on the side of this axe, right? Very interesting. And it's kind of reminiscent of the patterns on the side of the Beastman cleaver, as you can see. It seems like a higher grade of symbol, right? Maybe etched into it a little nicer. It's a little higher detail. But the one on the Beastman cleaver is still very, very similar, right? And I think even the small one has patterns, but not so similar. The small little curved sword, right? And so this has led some people to suspect that this is actually Serosh's axe. That when Godfrey defeated Serosh and made him his beast regent, he also took his weapon, the symbol of his power and likely his authority, and started to use it as his own. And sure enough, an axe this large, double-headed as it once was, might have been of wonderful craftsmanship beyond human ken, because the Beastmen are known for being granted wisdom and having crafting and metallurgy techniques beyond that of regular men. But it has the standard Colossal Axe moveset, and that is Until You Roar, which has a stomp, and then the heavy is a stomp sweep. And I think you can hold it to charge it. And then you have a follow-up. And those hit roll hard. In fact, that stamp sweep might be a combo if I recall. I've seen some people put rapier in their offhand, and then they'll have the axe in their main hand, and they'll hit somebody with a stomp sweep and then a little rapier poke afterwards, which is rather silly. I put Horolu's Earthshaker on the cleaver so we could see that. So it's this roar with a slam, and you can do a follow-up slam. If you want to avoid the big damage that does in PvP, you gotta jump it. And you can jump attack the user to get back at him. But this has a stun, and then that's a hit, and that has a hit. So if people are point blank, the yellow will actually stumble them. It's a really light stumble, but it exists nonetheless. Okay. As for Godfrey himself and his characterization, it seems that he was truly Horolu, chieftain of the Badlands, and he came back to the Lands Between at the behest of Queen Marika, as we were told about in those prophecies of hers that Melina exposited unto us. And he came back, and his grace led him to us, that he needed to take care of us to fulfill the wishes of the Erd Tree. The Erd Tree and the Guidance of Grace saw us as an enemy, it seemed, at the end there. And he has a tender little moment where he is holding Morgott, and he says that it's been a long time since he's seen Morgott. And given that he recognizes him and hasn't just heard about him, it leads me to suspect that Morgott truly is one, not just a child of the Golden lineage, but one of Godfrey's direct descendants, along with Godwyn the Golden. So that means Moog, Morgott, and Godwyn the Golden were likely the first of Godwyn's children. The ordering, I don't know. But it seems that they were the first of those three. And granted, they are a lot stronger than Godric, who is a offshoot country bumpkin. So it all lines up fairly well. Let's see what else is there. Radigan. Radigan, we find him in shambles. Literally, when we fight him, he is in pieces. And he still fights, and he still has tremendous faith and power, and he can wipe the floor with us if we are not playing carefully. And he wipes the floor with many players who show up to fight him, even before you get to the Elden Beast. And it seems that in the end, he believed in the Golden Order more than Queen Marika did, and he wanted to fix it, but he did not have the resources to do so, unfortunately, in his current state. Well, now his current state is gone, but that's besides the point. Alright, what else is there to talk about? We don't get much of Radigan as far as a character goes, unfortunately. He just seems to be half of Queen Marika, and he believed in the Golden Order more than she did. And we've talked at length about him, but as far as endgame Radigan goes, we don't get much more other than he sees us as an enemy and wishes to dispatch us. And when he fails, the Elden Beast arrives and turns him into a weapon. This weapon, to be precise. This gross thing. It has this ridiculous wave attack that just keeps going out. In PvP, though... Oh, I killed somebody over there. It does reduce damage at range, I believe, so they've nerfed it a little bit. Alright, what else is there? I think we're time for the mismatched lore, right? Or trivia, so let's see. We fight 3 Leonine Misbegotten of the red hair throughout the game, and each one drops a legendary armament. One drops the Grafted Greatsword, one drops the Ruins Greatsword, and the last one drops the Golden Order Greatsword. However, the last one is referred to as the Crusader Misbegotten, I believe. Let's see. Some people suspect that Ranni... They want to ask what Ranni did with her Great Rune, right? But it seems that Ranni slew her flesh before the Shattering, where everyone got their Great Runes. So I kind of discount this theory from the onset. But it's kind of worth looking into, I suppose. But the theory is, what did Ranni do with her Great Rune? And if you can get a good angle of the moon, I'm not here. I think the moon's a little fuzzy here because I have the endgame state. Apparently people claim that they can see a line being crossed by 2 other lines on the surface of the moon. And they claim that Ranni hid her Great Rune on the moon. Personally, I don't think Ranni ever attained a Great Rune. I think she slew... Remember, she died before Queen Marika shattered the Elden Ring, giving people access to Great Rune. So I think from the get-go that theory is bupkis. But you can do with that what you will. Let's see. Construct enemies like imps, burial watchdogs, and golems can be short-circuited with crystal darts. I've shown that off numerous times, but if you didn't know that, now you know. There are, let's see, night sorceries don't trigger enemy dodges. I think I've gone over that before. So the nighttime looking sorceries, they'll do that. They won't trigger the dodge effect, so they're very useful for that. I'm just going over my list of unsorted trivia right now, so it'll be a little raw, but let's see. There are 6 varieties of buff. Right? You can have a weapon buff, a shield buff, a body buff, an aura buff, a health regen buff, and a stamina regen buff. Holy Ground and Terra Magica specifically don't adhere to any of the other buffs. So yeah, weapon, shield, body, aura, health, and stamina regen, that's 6. If you count ground buffs, I guess you could say there's 7. Let's see. Don't need to talk about that one. I've already talked about Falling Star Beasts and how they evolve. Let's see. The Regal Ancestor Spirit and Gideon Ofnir both steal abilities. Gideon Ofnir, depending on how many demigods that are lost that we tell him about, he gives us a reward and he gets a new spell for his fight. So that's a neat little tidbit. So the more of the world you've explored, in theory, the stronger Gideon Ofnir is. But he has a set of base spells he'll have even if you've discovered nothing. And he replaces those as you discover more. Okay, let's see. Towering Sister Philia, the Albanoric, is given the ability to procreate. Many artificial beings throughout media don't seem to have that capacity, so that is a common trope I didn't address at the time. Miranda's Prayer is a cut content item that would have let you cast those beams of light that the giant Miranda flowers have. That attack that they have where a bunch of beams of light strike an area. Kind of neat. George R. R. Martin mentioned in an interview with Stephen Colbert, I believe, that he helped design the cataclysmic event that took place 5,000 years before the present day in the game. So we have a little bit of a timetable. Kind of interesting that that cataclysmic event supposedly happened 5,000 years ago, which I guess kind of explains the dismal state of the world and the decay it has gone through. But that's the closest thing we have to any actual time relation between events. Everything else is kind of know vaguely when they happened, and that's about it. Let's see. Hit stop is a mechanic that causes a brief pause in attack animation to give off the illusion of resistance. You may have seen it sometimes. Let's see if I can trigger it here. No, not here. Is there an enemy in this area? Somebody I can smack? Okay, watch this hit. Oh no, it was a backstab. Where's the other one? Okay. It's hard to see. It's easier to see on larger attacks, but basically the animation pauses for a moment when you hit something. Just briefly. And it was really bad that actually on the Death's Poker, because this thing hit so many times while it was hitting stuff, your character would be jittery and it would slow it down. They fixed that, but hit stun's just supposed to give the illusion of, you know, hitting something. It's not supposed to slow down the animation significantly, but it did with Ghost Flame Ignition. Let's see. What else I got here? Tree root resin. Let's look at tree root resin. It's very freeform. Resin secreted from the roots of the great tree can also be found near trees on the surface, material used in crafting items. The roots of the great tree were once linked to those of the Erd tree, or so they say. And it is for this reason that catacombs are built around great tree roots, so... Yeah, I had a theory at one point where I was talking about how it seems that the great roots may have grown into the catacombs, but this one little root resin kind of disproves that theory, unfortunately. It also seems to imply that the roots of the great tree are no longer linked to the Erd tree, but not sure what to think about that one. Let's see what else is there. Queen Marika's bedchamber. Let's head to it. For this goofy little lore field trip we find ourselves on. Okay. So here's the bedchamber, more or less, right? Queen Marika's bedchamber symbolizes her as a blessing of the Erd tree. However, she is a Newman and a descendant of denizens of another world. So it seems that the genealogical tree that we see all over the place in Lanedale on tapestries and chairs and whatnot seems to be an attempt to legitimize Queen Marika's connection to the Erd tree. Also, her bed is like a basin for collecting blessings, like we've seen throughout the game. I think I've talked about how this seems to be based on architecture. I'm trying to remember which one it was exactly. I think it's like the Pantheon or the Parthenon, or maybe St. Peter's Basilica is actually the one I'm looking for. I think that's the one with the domed roof it seems to be patterned off of. Let's see. Melina as a character seems to misunderstand mothers and their purpose, but is empathetic about new births, especially when we're going down the Flame of Frenzy ending, right? Perhaps all are born from the boughs of the Erd tree, like the catacomb boss doors suggest, and that natural births like the demi-humans have and the serpents are actually considered unnatural by this world's reckoning. Okay, let's see. The baptismal fonts in Lanedale are based off the ones used by the Christian Byzantine Empire. I believe I've talked about that one. The Schism of the Fingers. We could talk about that a little bit. That's one I really wanted to go into detail on, and I failed dramatically. So, let's head back to the Moonlight Plateau. Moonlight Altar, I suppose the game wants us to call it. So let's get up here and let's go on a little rant, why don't we? Just more random trivia, essentially, and speculation abroad. Or will abound, I should say. Okay. We have these saint statues. Alright, let's get to chatting about it. So let's see. In the year 1054, the Patriarch of Constantinople excommunicated... God, I can't speak. Let me start over. I apologize. In 1054, the Patriarch of Constantinople excommunicated visiting representatives of the Pope after one of those representatives excommunicated the Patriarch. This seems petty since it was over matters of unleavened bread and the inclusion of the Philique in the Nicene Creed. I think that's how that's pronounced. This split the Christian church into the Eastern and Western halves, the Greek Rite and the Latin Rite. This was a long time coming, of course. Later division came when there was a difference on how to make the sign of the cross, whether or not it was to be done with 2 or 3 fingers. The groups divided in question were the Russian Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. It is worth noting that in Elden Ring, that the 2 fingers seems to have interpreters who can read their motions, while the 3 fingers have no interpreters. Instead, the 3 fingers burn their fingerprint message into all available surfaces, right? Are the 3 fingers saying the same thing over and over again, though? I presume they can't, on a whim, change their fingerprint, but we don't know how that all works, right? The 2 fingers don't even have fingerprints, though, when we look at them. In fact, it looks like they are encased in a sort of fleshy glove. For the blindfolded scholars of the lands between, reading incantations is done in Braille. These holy books would be read with gloves on in our world as to preserve them. So, kind of interesting that it seems that the 2 fingers have a glove of their own. For the blindfold... I already read that. Hayeta touches the words of the 3 fingers. She literally reads the Braille seared in our flesh during that part of the game. Let's see. Why are there sets of 2 and 3 fingers? Well, we know in history that the Tsar sent troops door to door to weed out the Raskolini, the so-called schism makers. He ordered his troops to gouge out the eyes of any finger heretics they found. The most famous martyrs of this persecution were incarcerated in a dungeon deep underground and left to die slowly of starvation. This mirrors the tragic fate of the nomadic merchants in the Grand Caravan in Elden Ring. True to FromSoft fashion, they modified which group correlates to which for the use of worship of the 2 or 3 fingers. They are swapped. Let's see. The Russian 2-finger Christians were self-exiled deep into the taiga of Siberia, at the borders of Mongolia and the Altai Mountains. These lands are the ancestral home of wandering nomads with pelt caps, obviously the inspiration for Elden Ring's nomadic merchants. The most zealous of these old believers demonstrated their faith took part in a practice they called fiery baptism, a process of mutilation performed on the chest and genitals using a red-hot iron. The burns left behind are called the Lesser and Greater Seal, perhaps the true hallmarks of the Flame of Frenzy. So there seems to be another connection there. What does this tell us? Well, it shows us that there must have been some past schism in the world of Elden Ring, a crisis likely political in nature, that the 2 and 3 fingers may have been a single entity. This is best represented by Hayeta's reference to the One Great. The Cathedral of Mana Celeste might shed some light on... The Cathedral of Mana Celeste might shed some light on when this schism happened. Now, it's not exactly known how one might say... God, I keep messing that up. The Cathedral of Mana Celeste might shed some light on when this schism happened. Now, that's not exactly how one would say it in Latin. However, it seems clear that FromSoft is trying to convey the phrase celestial hand with the term Mana Celeste. This use of Latin is quite consistent with Liurnia in general, Rea Lucaria and their conspectuses of magic, the Bellum Church, Noxtella. They all have Latin etymologies, right? In ancient Christian and even some earlier Hebrew art, it isn't uncommon to depict the agency of God as a disembodied hand. Note that the nomadic merchants play their instruments with a bow with a full hand on the end. The Cathedral of Maniceleste worshipped the celestial hand in some form. The cathedral is named after the concept, and the location has some of the most plentiful details for some archaeology, right? Firstly, the building is in the style of a Western-style basilica, that is to say, a cathedral. Again, consistent with its Latin origins. The place is impressive even in its ruined state. The high arched windows indicate a technologically advanced society. Columns scattered about are octagonal with a studded pattern on them. I want to make sure I'm showing that off. They also seem to be made with concrete, associated in our world with the High Roman period. The clover, trefoil, quatrefoil shapes in the windows match that of the cloves at the base of the Sword Saint statue. So if we look all over the place, we can see that we have them at the base of these Sword Saint statues, those clovers, right? And it is seen throughout the windows and different arched places of the Cathedral of Maniceleste, right? There doesn't seem to be iconic graphic replacement here like we see in Stormvale, Redmane, and the Fortified Manor, right? The clover pattern in windows also can be found throughout Rea Lucaria Academy and the Carrion Study Hall. The Carrion Study Hall seems to have been originally from the Saint Tree stratum and was later converted into the study hall for the Carrions. This is exemplified by the astrolabe placed in front of the great tree relief in that building. The biggest hint given to us by the Cathedral of Maniceleste is that the Saint and Tree Empire... The biggest hint given to us by the Cathedral of Maniceleste is that the Saint and Tree Empire before the Erd Tree fingers were unified... Oh, I keep reading that funny. Hold on. The biggest hint given to us by the Cathedral of Maniceleste is that the Saint and Tree Empire existed before the Erd... What on earth am I trying to say here? The biggest hint given to us by the Cathedral of Maniceleste is that in the Saint and Tree Empire, in the time before the Erd Tree, the fingers were unified, and that the celestial hand was also worshipped. Okay, sorry, that's all I was trying to say. Goodness. It's almost a unique structure in game, with one exception, the Church of Vows. The Church of Vows shares several details with Maniceleste, but the differences paint the picture. So let's go take a look at the Church of Vows. Alright, here we are. So let's see here. The octagonal pillars are still here, right? But the high arches they support are filled with bricks. There's also the addition of non-concrete columns. The front of the church is also not like what we've seen in Maniceleste, but it's much like the simpler style of the smaller churches that dot the lands between. The Church of Vows was named to commemorate the union between Radigan and Renala, and it is a later church built at the site of a prior Saint and Tree era cathedral. It seems to be hinting at, right? This is why the back of the church, the high arched windows have been subsequently filled in with stone masonry, and the tiny windows have replaced the grand ones that we see in the Cathedral of Maniceleste. The windows are even obscured by the saint statues, which is kind of a nonsensical layout. It seems a dead giveaway that there has been some remodeling going on here. The octagonal studded columns and arches leave no doubt as to who originally built this building, but the new builders have lost access to the technology of Roman concrete. This dates the Church of Vows. It was built after the society that worshipped the celestial hand was already gone. So there you go. There seems to be a division in the hand of Maniceleste. Let's see. What other lore tidbits can we go nuts about? there were lots of folks that cared about Renala, right? Radigan left a red wolf behind, as well as the amber egg with a great rune embedded in it. Rykard has left behind 2 abductor virgins, one that leads folks to the Volcano Manor and the other that blocks the path to Renala, right? Wolgrim, the Carrion Knight, is immediately before Renala for her defense, and during Renala's boss fight, Ranni takes control during Phase 2 of the fight on behalf of her mother. Let's see, what else do I have? What makes a god in Elden Ring is having power over the birth and the deaths, What makes one a god in Elden Ring is having power over the birth and death cycles of the world, right? Because we see in the game that the Empyreans, in large part, are women, save for Mikola, who, if we trust cut content, is the alter ego of Saint Trina and is not stereotypically masculine. The Godskin Swaddling Cloth. Let's see. The Godskin Swaddling Cloth heavily implies that the Glomide Queen is a mother of sorts to the Godskins. Glomide Queen cradles newborn apostles swaddled in this cloth. Soon they will grow to become the death of the gods. There we go. Let's see. Other lore. The Scarlet Rot predates Melania and Caelid by a long while. The mushroom crown indicates that long ago great lords served the Scarlet Rot. Perhaps such fungal bodies served as their crowns. The map for the Lake of Rot states that the Scarlet Rot is the essence of an outer god sealed away. Crystallians, which are inorganic, can be afflicted with and spread the Scarlet Rot, and the Scorpion Stinger, the Rot Dagger, is a relic of the Rot god, and its barb is from a scorpion. Is the god of Rot a scorpion? Don't know. The warrior set, blue cloth talisman, and flowing curved sword tell the story of the blind swordsman who sealed away Rot itself. Question is, was this a literal fight or simply the rerouting of 2 underground rivers to contain the Rot? Okay, let's see. The ritual cremation associated with the Deathbirds, Ghost Flame, and the Twin Bird seem to have connections as far back as Farum Azula, as there is a relief above Malekith's doorway with the depiction of the Twin Bird. There are also cremation urns and statues of humans in authority, indicating a difference in burial practices between draconic humans and beastmen. So I touched on those elements lightly, but not together. It seems that the libation statues from the Great Tree and the Sword-Stained Stratum are actually funerary libations to send off the dead, likely using sap from the Great Tree. That is until Marika would reform the practice in her own era. The Erd Tree Favor Talisman, which I do have on hand. The Erd Tree Favor Talisman depicts an unveiled Marika, very unlike the libation statues of old, which are very modest. Marika is showing her golden locks, but her life-giving bosom is shown prominently. This is not your grandmother's libation ritual. I think that's a line I took from, almost verbatim, from Tarnished Archaeologist. He does a way better job of all of these theories, but I thought I would include them nonetheless. Let's see, the handless statues in the Fringe Folk hero's grave, and the headless statues on the top of the hero's grave, and the headless dragon statues of the Dragon Community churches all faced some sort of iconoclasm. Perhaps these handless statues were libation statues as well, indicating that libations of death existed instead of libations of life, something Queen Marika would not want associated. Okay, and that's it for my oddball random trivia. That was almost a whole episode in of itself, but I thank you for joining me, and I hope you had fun hearing some of those theories and having me just go off on a wild ride. But I thank you for joining me, and next time we will really take a deep dive. Well, not too deep of a dive. A dive. We'll take a dive. Maybe just a cannonball into the endings of the game. They're terribly vague as it is. But thank you, and I hope you have a good one, and bye-bye.